On this episode of ResiWeek, hiring tips for tight labor markets, Access Networks has a new online store, and Amazon's building robots just for you. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek episode 120, Vesta.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Access Networks and by SDVOE, the platform for networked AV.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. And today I'm pleased to be joined by my longtime friend, Heather Sidorowicz. She is the president of Southtown AV in beautiful Buffalo. How you doing?
I am doing swell. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. It is Victoria Day here, where we celebrate the Queen. So, yeah.
We should be drinking tea. Tea.
I hate tea. It's
No?
disgusting. Unless it's sweet tea mixed with lemonade to make an Arnold Palmer. That's a good day. Last but not least, we have Todd Mayers. He is the Director of Emerging Technologies at Peerless and one of my favorite people in the industry. How you doing, my friend?
All right, man. How's everybody doing today?
Doing great. See, you notice, I just one of my favorite people in the industry, not just at Peerless, the entire industry. Unlike Tim Albright, who thinks you're just really cool at Peerless. See, he's not on this, so he can't defend himself. It's great. All right, let's jump into a story that comes to us directly from CE Pro. More great hiring tips in a tight labor market. Join industry forums, pay for referrals, things like this. This comes to us from Jay Basin. Essentially, one of the things he's saying is that as we are seeing an expanding economy and more business coming in, we need to continue to grow our staff. This has always been a big problem in the industry, and it's something that when you ask integrators, it really is usually one of the biggest pain points is finding qualified talent. One of the things that Jay here gets into is that we need to take a more effective method, which is a more active approach as far as not just throwing your job option or opportunity up on Monster or Indeed or any of those sites, but actually start looking at things like referral programs and targeting skill sets. And last but not least, of course, stealing from your competitors, which sometimes is good and sometimes is bad. He also gets into things like hiring interns, building a database, and using recruiters. Heather, as an integrator, this is always a big thing that we as integrators have to deal with. We have staff turnover. We're not usually companies the size of, say, Peerless, that where Todd comes from. We're dealing with smaller groups of people, and occasionally, sometimes different skill sets that are required. But again, we need a lot of times more general skill sets. How do you go about, searching for new talent, and more importantly, how hard is it to find talent these days?
I think that what we need to do truly as an industry is start from the ground up. So what we fail to do, I think, very often in our small businesses is how many of us have written job descriptions that we even know what we're hiring for versus a kind of more, we take a kamikaze approach and we lose someone and we hire someone, but we're not really looking at what we need, where we need to grow. And then the most important part is our culture. What I've discovered is the stronger culture you have, A, the better you're going to retain your A players, and B, the better you can bring them in. I just successfully hired a restaurant programmer who's more than that. He'll be an engineer. I hired him for less than he's making at his current job. And I did that because I've been talking to him for years. He knows what our culture is like. And he came because he knows that he could grow within it. So it wasn't about money. It was about, I want to work somewhere where I can grow and be who I want to become.
Well, I think that speaks to the change that we are starting to see just across the board in all industries is people are not always chasing per se that dollar figure, although that's important. Other factors really come into play. Todd, when we look at this and when you guys specifically as manufacturers look at this, you're dealing with usually a lot more departments and a lot more opportunities potentially than most of your residential integrators are. When you guys start looking at this, and when things come up like Fortune's reporting that the U.S. unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in the century, when you guys are looking for or are requiring new talent, how do you go about doing that when we're seeing statistics like this, that the unemployment rate is so low and there's not as many people looking for jobs, not as many people are out there, so your pool's smaller? How do you guys go about that?
So I'll tell you, at Peerless, it's kind of, it's a little bit unique because the culture of Peerless has been kind of evolving over the last few years. And, you know, for those of you who knew us 10 years ago, we weren't a technology company per se as we are today, right? We were a metal bending manufacturing company. And as we've gone forward with our emerging technologies team, and the fact that we now have display offerings and wireless offerings and interactive offerings, we have more of a rounded offering in my little corner of Peerless right now. The problem that I've run into with this, especially with hiring, and in fact, it's something I'm dealing with today as we sit here, is I'm trying to figure out, I need a new product manager in my group right now, and I need to have someone come in. But because the culture in Peerless has been so much about the manufacturing of bent metal, there isn't a lot of inherent people for referrals on the inside of Peerless for technical product managers, specifically dealing with electronics, something you plug in versus a piece of bent metal. So, you know, I go about it a lot of different ways because I come from an installation integration background. I know what the installers are looking for in the products that we're putting out in the field. So I try and actually bring people in that I know from the industry that have a lot of input as to, you know, how the product's going to be used in the field, but also can start stating, you know, what needs to change with the product and how we can actually speak to the integrators and the users of our products a little bit better. So instead of just going for a straight off recruiter or something like that, or a cold call, or rather not a cold call, but you know, just putting out a wanted ad, I really try and find people that I've dealt with in the past that either have a line on someone that is more technically minded, like myself and like some of my colleagues are. I try and not go about it a very standard way, because I feel that we've tried to do that with at least in the emerging tech division of Peerless, and because a lot of people don't know us as being a display manufacturer and a wireless provider, that type of thing, we don't get a lot of the, in my opinion, the correct people that just come to the door looking for a job. So I try and really tailor who I'm looking for, and I really try and cherry pick a little bit more from people I know.
Todd, don't you feel though that a lot of the technical aspect can be taught versus going after the right person that can fit culturally, and I guess really where I'm leading the witness to is what I find with our industry is we're crying that there's no one to hire, and yet we're still 99.9% male dominated. So like, have we opened up the pool to say, hey, maybe I should look in not the normal places to find people?
Right. So speaking of a male-dominated comment, I've made it a point to really try. Like the product manager I just had working for me was a woman that I brought up from customer care, and I, you know, knowing that it is there's not a lot of women in this industry, I feel that it brings a lot more credit when we start bringing people from the inside up. And there was a couple people that we saw that have come through my group, females specifically, that have really started to make a name for themselves within the industry. The girl that I just left, unfortunately, went to the sales side of things. So I definitely, I think for that same reason, that if I put an ad out there, I would say over the last couple of years, people I've interviewed, I have not had one female come to me from just an ad out in the field.
Right,
it's been more. Yeah, exactly. And I do believe that that's important to try and balance what we see in the field quite a bit. So that's actually, that was one thing that was really at the forefront of my thought a year and a half ago when I hired this girl, and she did such a great job for me. It's really been kind of a bummer because I'm still dealing with the loss of her right now, going to the other division. But no, I think that from a Peerless standpoint specifically, there's too many people that are just kind of this blank slate kind of person that comes to the door, and I need somebody that's a little bit more geared towards what we're trying to do and trying to really change the face of Peerless in general.
So let me ask you guys this. When we're looking at things, and Todd, you brought up a really good point, that you're, leveraging your network, right? Your network of people within the industry, trying to find someone that fits that opportunity. And Heather, you brought up the point of trying to bring people in off the street and how tough that is. How do we balance, that traditional method of being a smaller industry and going after people within the industry versus trying to grab someone from, IT or computer programming or construction or what have you, someone who's outside the field and doesn't know we exist? How do we balance both of those issues?
I feel like I've had my greatest successes in outside the industry, because you can raise the rest, you can teach the rest. I find that outside the industry sometimes is a great place to be because you can see what the potential is, versus it's really hard to teach the old dog new tricks kind of thing. They're set in their ways, and then there's sometimes a bit of ego that can come along with that. So for me, I've been, I don't know if it's luck or talent or neither, but I've always found great success in outside the industry.
Maybe it's just you. It could be. All right, let's move on to our next story. This comes to us from Residential Systems. Access Networks has created a new online store for integrators. If you've purchased Access Networks, or if you're interested in purchasing them and you are a dealer, you can essentially access their online store called My Access, which is replacing the legacy online store that they had. And from there, you're going to be able to purchase essentially all of the products with some pre-configuration and extend it from there. Todd, I wanted to start with you on this. When we start looking at dealer-specific and vendor-specific online purchasing opportunities, I know for myself and my company, we use your online catalog extensively when we're looking for mounts and speccing systems and things such as that. We leverage that all the time, and I personally usually seem to leverage that at 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night. When I can't just call my supplier, whoever that may be, whether it's you directly or a distributor. When manufacturers are putting together online stores in addition to just online catalogs, when does that become worth the time and investment to create that?
In my opinion, it's when you become, we use this term kind of a lot in these four walls here, but it's when you become that one-stop shop. So if I've got, for instance, the division I work with, we deal a lot with our outdoor digital signage, right? Our outdoor digital TV. And a lot of times those get put into kiosks. They're not necessarily freestanding a lot of times. So I'll deal a lot with my kiosk division, and we try and basically offer a breadth of product that is a one-stop shop. If you need a kiosk, is it going to be indoors or outdoors? If it's going to be either or, then you have your cameras available for that. Do you have your card readers available for that? Any type of printers that might be needed? Do you have a line in the water for a specific media player or some type of content management system to go for? So what I see with these online stores, if you can create a full solution from that one-stop shop, then that makes a lot more sense from my standpoint, being in my previous iteration as an integrator, and then currently seeing what the integrators come to us for, talking with them at the trade shows, understanding that they don't want to go to a bunch of different stores. They want to go to one store and be able to basically get the full product that they need, or at least the full system that they need at that point. So I think that Peerless is getting much better at that, specifically when it comes to that kind of one-stop shop. We've got these some new things that we're going to be showing at InfoComm in the next 2 weeks, specifically an LED configurator. So now someone comes to us and says, okay, I'm going to be going for this LED wall, and I'm going to be making it X by X wide and tall. We now have this basically widget that you can go onto our site with, and you can now construct that full kiosk wall that you need, depending on the brand, or not kiosk wall, I'm sorry, LED wall, depending on the brand that you're working with. It kind of gives them a complete solution all at once. So, whether it's kiosk, whether it's LED configurator, we're trying to become more of that when we come to standalone displays as well, not just with the kiosk division themselves. So that's when I see the value being offered to the end user at that point, is when they don't need to go to multiple stores to do that.
Heather, as we continue to seem to get to that point where you can buy anything online, doesn't matter what you're looking for.
When we get to that point?
No. We're pretty much there. We're pretty much there. When people start like Access Networks start providing this, is this something that changes the conversation that you might have internally as far as what products you offer? Because they now offer something that allows you to, if it's, 8:00 your time and you're trying to finish a quote for tomorrow and you need a number that you can't call your local distributor or manufacturer because their sales office might close at 5:00. Does this change that conversation for you?
I don't know if it changes the conversation, but I think ease of ordering is a big play for me. So how good does that website work? How fast is it and how easy is it? And the easier it is and the better they're at saying, here's some accessories that you may need, or here's what we also recommend. I think that's a way for a manufacturer to pull in some additional business. Crestron does that. Whether you love them or hate them, you have to go to their website to use it. And as soon as you do it, they're going to say, you might also need this. So when you ask for a model number in the Crestron land, it doesn't give you that model number, but it gives you pretty much an entire page of here's other model numbers with the cost already.
Right.
For that may be associated with this product. And that makes it's quicker, it's easier, whether that's 8:00 at night or whatever time it is. And that ease of ordering then it becomes my go-to.
Yeah, I agree. It's something where as long as I can find what I need
if it's a constant spinning wheel, then no.
No, you don't want that?
It's a bad.
You're so picky. Speaking of spinning wheels, and that's not a good transition at all, Bloomberg has reported that Amazon has a top secret plan to build home robots. This came out on the 23rd and was updated just the other day by Mark Gurman and Brad Stone. Amazon has been doing all kinds of crazy things, and it seems recently that they're working on a big bet right now to develop and build robots for the home. They've codenamed this project Vesta after the Roman goddess of hearth, home, and family.
It's my favorite part.
The name.
I love
the name's fantastic. Yes, hearth specifically.
My name to Vesta.
Wasn't there a Bond villain by the name of Vesta? This comes out of their Lab 126, which is their hardware and research development lab. Essentially, they're not really getting into much about what this is because it's purely speculation at this point. But Heather, as we start to look at this, and we know this is coming, and they're expecting that this is going to be a $15 billion business, consumer robots by 2023. Are you looking for, or what purpose do you see for a robot that can perform either just companionship or some form of basic chore beyond, again, the Roombas and things like that we already have? Is this something that A, you're interested in, and B, you want in your house?
Well, I'm going to put the caveat out there is if we could only feel confident that all that information stays in our intranet, right?
I'm going to say no.
It's not going to. But if we could, the possibilities. And yes, I'd be willing to give up everything if I knew it was somehow secure. So not knowing, then I don't know how far I'd go. But I love the idea of saying, Vesta, what's for dinner tonight? to have something. It hasn't been fixed yet. I mean, I was at CES. I saw the Sony, what's the Sony dogs called? And it's
Albo?
fun, and it's
Albo?
moving more, although that's still a companion piece.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about LGs and how it kept failing. So we're certainly not there. But if anyone can do it, this company has certainly proved that they are a game changer. They can think outside the box. I like the concept, but again, I still have a hard time even allowing Alexa to come out of my kitchen.
Right.
Although I know it's going to happen. It's not in my living room. Although I think in a previous podcast, you asked me where I plug my phone in at night.
Might have just done that.
Shoot, swear word.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that there's potential here for sure. And I'll look forward to whatever they'll come up with next.
Todd, when you guys look at this from not even the manufacturing side, but just the logistics of putting some form of robot and in a home, again, beyond a Roomba, something that can navigate stairs and different heights of flooring and all those different things that come into play. How far away are we from having something that not only can be in your home, but is more than just a cool thing that you bought because you thought it was cool and you plugged it in and used it for a week and then you never used it again because it can't navigate from the kitchen to the living room. How far out are we from that? And if we get there, are you wanting one?
Yeah, you know, I love technology in the home. I've created my smart home for myself. Lighting, HVAC, access control, audio, video, the whole
Todd, I
deal.
say, Vesta, get me a beer.
Yeah. You know, honestly, so to answer the first question, I would say we're probably about, I would say, 4 to 5 years from having something navigating your home in one shape or form. Now, whether it does it well or whether it's made for a ranch style home, or, I mean, that's all TBD at this point. I don't know if I really buy into, I've never bought into the Roomba. I've never bought into those helping. Out of all the things I've really gone for, the voice activated, say, line in the sand, I haven't really crossed that one yet. I don't have an Alexa. I am more of an Apple person myself. But that all being said, you know, I wanted to embrace the Apple HomeKit. I wanted to do something with the Siri control. I feel as though they haven't gone to that level yet. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, again, I may be showing my bias, Apple versus Android to some point here, because I do feel that Android's probably a little bit quicker to react to what people are looking for out there. But I think Apple holds back enough to say, listen, we know we can do this right now. We just don't understand if we're doing it properly yet. And I think a lot of that has even been seen even with just kind of Android versus Apple technology in the phones alone. So if we're talking about having something walking around my house and getting me a beer or making some toast for me or something like that, I don't know if I'm there myself, but I do see that being something navigating a general home atmosphere within the next 4 to 5 years that can be kind of on the affordable side. I would say that it's gonna probably take about that long to do that. I mean, I remember looking at OLEDs back in 2008, and it was a 19-inch screen, and you know it was $5,000, and it was like, oh, well,
I played with it. I know it. Matt, so, you could say, Vesta, watch the children. I'll be right back.
That would be fantastic. I do that with Alexa now. No, I don't. Don't call CSA on me. You know, the thing that I find really interesting about this is what I want it to do is stuff like, you know, hey, bring me a Dr. Pepper out, you know, into the basement, or, you know, when I'm out on the deck. But do I want it to be able to open doors and navigate things like that? Do I want it to cook dinner and not be aware of what's going on? For me, it always hits the conversation of, can I do it? Yeah, maybe sort of. Should I? How safe is it? And like my son is to the age where he can now open our deadbolts. He's 3, but he can reach up, open our deadbolts, and let the cat in and out, which is great, except when we're not in the same room. I get concerned with things like robots that if it's something...
Vesta, don't let the kids out.
You would hope so, but again, how do you draw that line? How do you control that? How do you manage that?
It is a super, and that, I mean, that's why they have probably the smartest minds, or some of the smartest minds on this project, because you're absolutely right. How do you begin to conceptualize what is potential? But did you think that voice control would be as good as, and it's not even great yet, as it is only 5 years ago? I mean, 5 years ago, there was none. We couldn't, you know, our phones still didn't know what we were talking about. So if anyone has the potential, I'm an Apple lover too. They're way behind the game right here. Google has the potential. They've been capturing voice for the longest, and yet it's Amazon who's been coming in with a 1-2 punch and leading this revolution.
Well, it's first to market too, right? Todd, when you see this, do you view this as being Amazon's ball to run with? Or do you think someone else can come in and, because you know we're going to get there?
Absolutely. I mean, they're definitely paving the way, you know? I mean, they're gonna do all the heavy lifting, and then people are gonna come by and smooth it over and figure out how to do it better. So to an extent, yeah, they're absolutely running with it right now. I think that they've, you know, even though I haven't bought into the voice control, they definitely have that cornered for at least the options that are out there today. You know, will it get better? Absolutely. Will they be the ones to make it better? maybe not.
All right. Let's leave it there. Although that does always just make me think of every time we start talking robots. I don't know if any of you saw the Josh AI April Fool's video that went around. It's the new version of Josh AI personal assistant thing. And it's literally a guy with the Josh AI voice who's a butler who follows you around the house. Go pick up the kids. It's fantastic. All right. Thank you again so much for joining us. Heather, if people want to connect with you, where can they do that?
Find me on Twitter. I'm tech, TECH_chi, CHI. Balance of technology and life. You can Google me and find me all the other fun places too. Excellent.
Thanks again. Todd, thanks for joining us. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Peerless, where can they do that?
Absolutely. Twitter, LinkedIn under Todd Mayers, and then certainly through the Peerless AV website, they can contact me as well. So if anybody's got any questions, our products, want to just have a chat, feel free.
And if anyone is at, I didn't prep you for this, so it's more fun. If anyone is at Infocom for the Infocom show, do you have your booth number on hand? Nope. Awesome.
Use the app.
Yeah, use the app. Stop by.
Yeah,
you never can miss the Peerless booth. They're usually quite large.
Samsung will be all by the big boys.
Perfect. I know I will stop by. So if you haven't checked out Peerless recently, check them out as well. Thanks again for joining us. For myself, if you'd like to follow me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and every other social platform. But more importantly, please stop by AVNation.tv. You'll find this show as well as a wide variety of all of our other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our underwriters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you support them as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.